We're coming up on the 7th annual European International Championship. For the past couple of years, EUIC has been the first tournament after a rotation, so we've really had no tournaments to look back at, but this year is not the case. While it is still a fairly new format, we do have a couple major tournaments that we can look to see what might do well. And one of the decks that I definitely have my eye on right now is Gouging Fire. We saw it kind of come out of nowhere and get second at the Merida Regional Championships. I've not been the biggest fan of this deck in the past, but after playing a bunch of games with it, I do think it's in a pretty decent spot right now. Now, Merida has won both of the major events so far in this format, so we can see that big basic decks are in a pretty decent spot. The thing that usually puts Merida above all the other big basic decks is Iron Hands. Big basic prize race type decks usually have a hard time dealing with when a deck can leave a single prize Pokemon in the active on the first turn. But since Iron Hands takes an extra prize, Merida doesn't really have to worry about that. Now the Gouging Fire deck has Delphox V, which for Fire colorless does 120, and then we can do 120 damage to one of our opponent's bench Pokemon. We do have to Lost Zone 2 energy to use this attack, but if we get rid of like a basic fire and a jet energy, we can use it a couple times with no problem. As long as the evolution decks don't start playing Manaphy again, this should be a pretty reliable strategy to take 2 prizes early in the game. We also have a couple other ways to get extra prize cards throughout the game in Munkidori and Flutter Mane. Munkidori is really cool in this deck because we self-damage with the Magma Basin Stadium, and Gouging Fire has 230 hit points, and since we're playing a couple of Bravery Charms, we can get it up to 280 HP, so pretty often our attackers are going to be left with damage on them. Probably the best in the Dragapult matchup since they're pretty much forced to leave damage on our board. Putting the 6 damage counters on the bench isn't really an option, so we should have an option to move damage over, and if we're able to use 2 Munkidori in a turn, our Gouging Fire can one-shot a Dragapult EX. This may seem like a lot to ask, but with the 3 energy switches in the deck, we can just bench a Munkidori, attach the Dark, move the damage, and then energy switch to a new Munkidori to move some more damage. This can really mess up Dragapult's plan to take like big 4 or 6 prize turns, and of course one-shotting their active is really nice as well. We can also use this to take a free prize against Budew. As long as we're able to use Magma Basin twice to get 40 damage on one of our Pokemon, then we can Munkidori 30 off of it onto Budew as just another way to take a 2 prize turn against 1 prize Pokemon. Munkidori and Flutter Mane also make the Gardevoir matchup so it's not just a complete auto loss, it does give us some kind of a chance. Like if they put too much damage on a Screamtail or a Drifloon, or even if we get really lucky, we can use 2 Munkidoris in a single turn and then attack with Flutter Mane to knock out 2 Kirlia. Also, having 2 V Pokemon that are really good attackers in the deck is really nice because it just lets Seal Stone slot really nicely into the deck. One downside is I think we do have to play Secret Box in the deck. The deck can be a bit clunky at times, so I don't really think we can afford to play Prime Catcher in it, even though having like reliable item-based Gust like that would be extremely strong. The only change that I made from the Merida list was I cut one of the Entei V for a Night Stretcher, having the option to get back like a Munkidori or a Dark Energy or even just an energy to draw cards with Greninja seemed pretty good, so that's what I ended up doing, and I thought Entei really seemed like the only possible card to cut for it without cutting into consistency, so that is what I went with. There also is no Latias in the list. While it would be kind of nice, we already have the 4 Jet Energies and a Switch, and sometimes we can even get away with retreating energies off to be able to use Sada again, so the deck has quite a bit of mobility without it. A Mew EX would probably be another nice option just as a hand refill, and even with the energy switches we could attack with it, so that is something to think about as well. And I'm not 100% sure what the Flutter Mane is actually for, other than just a way to knock out Mimikyu and another ancient Pokemon to accelerate to. Can also be a good Pokemon to retreat into on the first turn, but it has been pretty consistent in Gouging Fire list for a while, so I'm sure that there's a specific reason that I'm just not seeing. But yeah, that is the list. Big shout out and thank you to the channel members, and let's get into the games. Alright, this game we are up against Miraidon. It has been a really popular deck on the ladder, so wasn't very surprised to see it. Played against quite a few Miraidons. I'm using the Trekking Shoes here before the Nest Ball because I want to find more basic Pokemon with this hand. But I end up hitting a Sada, which is a little bit awkward. I decided to get rid of it since I was planning on using Squawk, but I drew into a second one, so that is a little bit awkward. Now I'm just going to Nest Ball for Greninja. I do have enough energy to use 2 Greninjas, so I had pretty good odds of drawing into either Gouging Fire, Nest Ball, Secret Box, or Ultra Ball. I should have looked through the rest of my deck there, but as you guys could see, I did not. I definitely should have. I should have checked how many Sadas were in the deck, and if there was still the 2 Sada and a Pal Pad, I probably could have gotten away with still using Squawkabilly, but still like my odds for sure. We would just really like to see my opponent not get an Iron Hands attack on my Munkidori this turn. That would be really great. Even though that doesn't automatically mean that we lose the game, because it can be really hard for them to knock out a Gouging Fire. They have to use Raichu or go around the Gouging Fire to like hand stuff like the Greninja, or if I were to bench Fezandipiti. They do attach a single energy to the Iron Hands and use Instant Charge. That is not super surprising. I mean, the deck is only playing like 4 draw supporters, or 4 supporters, and 4 consistency supporters, and none of them are draw cards. So yeah, without Squawkabilly, it can struggle to get going sometimes. Luckily, we do get into an Ultra Ball off the Greninja. Now I use the Sada. I have a little bit of a choice here with this hand. I could use Secret Box, but I don't really have to. I could even retreat the Munkidori if I didn't have a Fire for the Basin in the discard pile, but I don't need to do that because I already used Greninja twice. I think what I'm going to do here is Magma Basin to the other Gouging Fire, and then try to attack with a clean one to make it a little harder for them to knock it out. Putting 20 damage on it can be a bit weird in this matchup, and this way hopefully I can use Munkidori to attack with a clean Gouging Fire next turn. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Just move the 20 off of the benched one and put it wherever. It really doesn't matter where it goes in this matchup. Actually, probably the Pikachu would be the best spot, just so they can't try and stick that in the active. I did get rid of the boss with the Ultra Ball earlier. I forgot to touch on that. That was just kind of an awkward hand to Ultra Ball, so I was forced to. And the deck is playing Pal Pad and 3 boss, which it can be tricky sometimes to find a turn to use boss, so I wasn't super worried about it. And now, of course, we do have the Secret Box in hand, so not too much of a concern. Looks like they're setting up the Merida to attack. It will be interesting to see if they play the Zapdos or not. That can be a big deal in this matchup for hands like this where I didn't get the Bravery Charm. There maybe was some kind of argument to Secret Box for it, but I just didn't want to get rid of all these cards in hand. And even if they do knock out my Gouging Fire, I'm pretty set up to just, I'm pretty good hand to just set up another one and attack with it. I took the first 2 prizes. It's not like I need to stop them from taking a KO one turn. We're already ahead. As long as we can keep attacking, we're good to go. They did end up getting the knockout. They are playing the Zapdos. I think that is probably pretty good to play in Merida right now, for sure. I'm debating here what to send up. I was thinking about sending up the Gouging Fire. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to use Sada and then my attachment. But if I promoted, I don't know. It was kind of a weird decision. I could have promoted Munkidori and attached a Dark to it to move the damage off of the Gouging Fire, and then retreated off the Dark into the Gouging Fire, but I would have to draw a Basin to do that, and that would like force me to either draw into it or rely on my Secret Box to get it. So I didn't want to do that. I just decided to promote the Gouging Fire. I'm doing all my abilities first to try and get into Night Stretcher. Well, I was originally trying to get into Nest Ball. I thought I had another Gouging Fire in the deck, but I don't. Now I'm going to end up Secret Boxing for the Night Stretcher just to have another Gouging Fire set up for next turn. Seems like a good option. I don't really know if the game is losable if I set up a backup Gouging Fire. I don't imagine that this Meridon build will be playing any disruption. I know I'm personally not the biggest fan of playing decks that don't have any option to disrupt your opponent's hand, so I would add like a Judge or an Iona or something in it, but that's just me. Maybe that's not correct. Not really too sure. Kind of an awkward Secret Box decision. I really would have liked to keep the Delphox and the boss, because Delphox would give me an option to use Forest Seal Stone. I probably could have got rid of the Dark Energy now that I'm like watching it back. So that was probably a bit of a mistake with the Secret Box, but regardless, we do get into our Night Stretcher, and yeah, now it's just a pretty good spot to take back-to-back knockouts. The only other thing that I would need is a boss's order in case they decide to like stick a one prizer in the active next turn, which is probably why I should have just held on to the boss or the Delphox, so I had the option for Forest. I jet up the bench Gouging Fire. It really doesn't make a difference which one I attack with, and get punished by the prizes because I do end up getting another Dark Energy anyway. So yeah, next turn, I do have Ultra Ball, I guess, at this point to get Entei, and then I can Forest Seal Stone on the Entei for boss order. So I think we have pretty good odds to win this game, as long as the hand doesn't get disrupted. And even if they disrupt the hand, we still have Fezandipiti, Greninja, like just generally really good odds to end up winning. If they were able to like pop the Magneton and Iono me to 1, that might not be bad for them, but I don't really think that that's something that's going to happen. And that it's not. They grab Arven, or they use Arven, so yeah, now they definitely can't Iono. They Arven for Secret Box. Not super useful at this point, unless maybe they were to get a Bravery Charm and try and tank a hit with like Iron Hands or something like that. I don't really see very much of a line for them to win though. Even if they tank a hit with Iron Hands, there's really nothing they can do after that. And that's another cool part about the Munkidori in a matchup like this, is we're not super worried about Bravery Charm because I can just move damage over with the Monkey and still knock out anything through the Bravery Charm. And there is a Lost Vacuum in the deck. I can't remember if I already got rid of that earlier. I might have. I'm not sure. But either way, there's multiple ways to get around Bravery Charm. My opponent is probably just trying to figure out if they have like any kind of option to win the game. They're of course probably going to eventually retreat into the Magneton or Zapdos if they can't attack this turn, but I don't really know what they could do if they aren't able to take 2 prizes this turn. I don't think they have very much of an option to win. And now that they pop the Magneton, they definitely don't have an option to win. So not really too sure what they're thinking. Maybe they're just doing actions. I think I do this sometimes in games that I'm basically lost. I just start doing actions to try and come up with some kind of magical way to win the game. They are going to use the Iron Bundle. I promote the Greninja here. That's kind of annoying for them because they didn't set up their Iron Hands and they do just end up conceding. That is a pretty good matchup, so yeah, we take that one down pretty easily. All right, this game we are up against Dragapult. And one thing about Dragapult is always have to be a little bit worried about them using Badoo. And starting Secret Box in this opening hand is a little bit awkward because that makes me less likely to want to use Squawkabilly. Then I use my Trekking Shoes to hit into a Bravery Charm, which I don't know, not the best because Bravery Charm's really good in this matchup. I'm not too sure about my sequencing there. I maybe should have played the Trekking Shoes first. Maybe I'm trying to get into Fire Energies. I wish I could remember exactly what I'm thinking. I know here I'm playing the Secret Box right now because I'm worried about Badoo and I don't want to be stuck with a hand with just Secret Box in it and no like support draw or anything. And that also lets me get another basin so then I can Vessel away the first one. Now I can Nest Ball for a Gouging Fire. And oh no, I can't get an attachment on it. I forgot about that. And then after all those actions, I forgot that I hadn't used Fleet Footed. So that is a bit of a messy start there. I also, oh my god, I played this not very well. But it's an interesting game, so I wanted to use it. Or it's against Dragapult too, which is one of the most popular decks. So yeah. Definitely don't attach the Bravery Charm to the active. It always goes to the bench here because I want the option to use Forest Seal Stone on the Entei V. And it's just nice to have a Bravery Charm on the Gouging Fire because we're going to be attacking with that. And what they're going to want to do is hit into it for 200 and then knock it out on the bench with the ping damage. But now it's going to be a bit harder for them to do with the Bravery Charm on it. Even though using a Magma Basin would kind of mess that up, because it would just leave us with 260 hit points. So that is perfect math for their Phantom Dive into the ping damage. they get greedy there, and they knew I had an Iono or a Sada in hand, so they opt to use an Iono, which kind of ends up messing them up because they can't retreat into their Badoo, and now I just have free roam to use items and everything, which I was really debating that Vessel there. In hindsight, I probably should have just got rid of the vacuum. I don't really know what I was worried about. I think sometimes I get a little too tunnel visioned on disruption types of plays, like being able to get rid of their sparkling crystal can be pretty annoying for them, but as you can see, I end up ultra balling away the vacuum anyway, so I could have just vesseled it away. And now I have my 2 Gouging Fires, which what I wanted on the bench. I put a dark on one of them so that I can still use the Magma Basin, and just the Munkidori and Energy Switch combo it's just nice to have a dark on the board sometimes. And I end up just attaching to the Entei and probably attacking here. I could Basin to one of the Gouging Fires. I'm not too sure about that. I wasn't too sure at the time, but now, like after the fact, I know that I should have used the Basin. I even got a little messed up there watching it. I also didn't commit the Bravery Charm just to have an option to put it somewhere later in case, like, maybe I never get to use the Force on my Entei and it's sitting on the bench ready to be knocked out with the ping damage. Then I can choose to commit it there later. Also, I should have used the Basin because now I have no Pokemon with... I'm going to have no way to get a Pokemon with 30 damage on it so that I could knock out the Badoo with Munkidori. So that was kind of unfortunate. And even if I do like jet up the other Gouging Fire and then Basin to this Gouging Fire with the with the 10 damage on it, I'm not able to knock out most of the Pokemon that they could promote with the other Gouging Fire only doing 60 damage. So yeah, I end up in kind of a weird spot because I don't use the Basin. They do end up using Counter Catcher anyway, which messes up my plan a bit. I'm also unsure of what to jet up here. Putting a second Jet Energy on that Entei would feel kind of bad. And yeah, I think I messed this turn up a little bit too. This deck is like a little more unintuitive to play than I had originally thought. Here, what I'm planning to do here is Vessel for an Energy Switch to knock out the Badoo with Munkidori. But then I realized, oh, if they promote anything other than Duskull, I can't knock it out with the 60 damage attack anyway. So it would be kind of pointless to do that. I might as well just leave my Gouging Fire with the damage on it and move that damage over next turn to try and set up for a one-shot on a Dragapult. And yeah, they're getting their board pretty set up here. I think it's pretty rare for Dragapult to get the turn 2 Candy Dragapult attack, so this seems pretty on par with how the Dragapult matchup would go a lot of the time. They do have the Crispin, so they're able to save their Sparkling Crystal for later, which is pretty good for them. And they Counter Catcher up my other Gouging Fire with the 30 damage on it. I guess what they're thinking here is it's going to be harder for me to move this one out of range for the Dragapult ping damage maybe, but I have Munkidori and a Switch Cart, and I also have Energy Switch in hand now, which is kind of nice. This could possibly be before the Energy Switch Munkidori combo clicked into me. For some reason, I wasn't thinking of that when I was first playing this deck, which is kind of embarrassing to admit, but that is just what happened. And I do end up drawing into the Dark Energy, which may or may not be what I was looking for at the time. And if I was able to hold on to that Night Stretcher, I'd be able to one-shot this Dragapult with Munkidori attach, Energy Switch over to the other Munkidori that I could get with Night Stretcher. So that is a little bit unfortunate. Now here I think I'm debating if I should get a Sada or not. I don't really need it. I do end up getting a boss though, because I don't need the Sada, because I can just Energy Switch from probably... Oh yeah, I can damage the Entei and then Energy Switch up. I forgot about that. For some reason I was thinking that I did not have very many Fire Energy in the deck at this point. Or Energy Switch to the... Oh, I'm losing my mind. Yeah, because I want to Switch Cart this Gouging Fire so that they can't just knock it out with ping damage and take a 4 prize turn and put me in a really awkward spot. Now I can knock out the Fezandipiti, and next turn, as long as they don't target down my Munkidori, I can hopefully knock out this Dragapult. It would require them to set up a whole new Dragapult to not attack with the damage one, which honestly I don't think I was really considering at the time, because they didn't use Crystal, but I guess they didn't use Arven. I was originally thinking it was Prize, but it could almost certainly be in the deck and they just had the option to use Crispin, so that's what they went with. Now here I think that they do end up, yeah, using a boss, but they realize that now they have no way to attack with this Dragapult, so after they retreat, I think that they kind of realize that they lost, yeah, and they just concede. So yeah, after watching that game back, I think Dragapult might be an even better matchup for Gouging Fire than I originally thought. At first I thought it was just a little bit favored for Gouging Fire, but I don't think I really played that game all that well, and we still ended up coming out on top. There's definitely a few things I could have done a bit better. One thing I definitely need to work on with this deck is recognizing when and when not to use different attackers. After watching that game back, I think I definitely could have used Delphox at some point and even won the game without ever having to knock out a Dragapult EX, just taking the first 2 prizes the way that I did, and then committed to a Delphox to knock out 2 of the Dracloaks, and then finish off the game with Boss on Fezandipiti, or just knocking out a Dragapult EX, because it's not always guaranteed that they're going to put down Fezandipiti. A lot of Pult players should probably try not to put Fez down in matchups like this, but I think my opponent was drawing a little awkward there and was kind of forced into it. But yeah, that is Gouging Fire. I actually think that this deck is pretty good, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it do really well if a really good player picked it up, or someone like Luke Kirkham I know has put a lot of time with the deck and saw a pretty decent success. But yeah, I am pretty interested to see how it's going to do this weekend. And thank you to like all the new viewers and new subs that I got from the last video. We really appreciate it. That is super cool. I'm thinking about starting to work on a like how to plan out turns and find win conditions kind of a video, or I've started working on it a little bit, but if any of you have any like questions or suggestions for that video, let me know in the comments below. But if you haven't seen that video, I will put it on the screen right here. And yeah, thanks for watching. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.